Good afternoon. In this video, I will be presenting my research project, Artificial Intelligence for Conservation, UAV Image Segmentation in El Silencio Natural Reserve. This project begins in the Barbacoas wetlands, an ecosystem found in the Magdalena River Basin between Puerto Berrio and Barranca Bermeja, specifically in the municipality of Jondo in the Antioquia department. The tropical rainforest that neighbors the large Magdalena River creates an ecosystem that is comparable to the Amazon rainforest in terms of diversity. This contrasts to a 14,000 square kilometer area that hosts nearly 20% of all of Colombia's wildlife species. According to research, human intervention over the years has reduced this ecosystem to only 15% of its initial carrying capacity and has altered its landscape tremendously. This affects the number of species that can survive here and greatly diminishes the diversity found. It is still, however, home to some of the most endangered species in Colombian wildlife. This includes the spider monkey, the Spanish cedar, and the jaguar. Unfortunately, of the original 14,000 square kilometers of rainforest, only 2,100 kilometers remain. Like many other previously pristine and thriving rainforests in Colombia found in Chocó, Caquetá, the Sierra Nevada, Baupés, Guainía, and the Amazon, there are different human interventions that are putting the safety of these ecosystems at risk. Notoriously, one of the greatest impacts on the rainforest has been the expansion of the agricultural frontier to make room for cattle farming and soy plantation. Clearing primary rainforests to make room for agriculture requires cutting down or burning down large segments of untouched rainforest. Unfortunately, as we saw this year and the previous one in Brazil, the causing of forest fires sometimes escapes control, burning down a lot more area than was originally intended. Simultaneously, illegal and legal mining operations that seek to extract gold from the riverbeds have contaminated water sources with mercury and arsenic. This interferes with the normal cycles of vegetation and greatly affects diversity in the region. To counterbalance these destructive human interventions, many natural reserves have been set up around the country. One of these, called El Silencio. El Silencio Natural Reserve is a project that seeks to establish a protected natural reserve in the Barbacoas wetlands as a space for endangered species conservation and to raise awareness of the importance of preserving and protecting this natural habitat. In order for the reserve to be successful, it is important to create monitoring tools that allow big data to be processed in an efficient way. There is currently a worldwide trend that has appeared to use machine learning and deep learning technologies in conservation. This increases processing efficiency and keeps up with the data gathering technologies that have been developed, such as camera traps, satellite imagery, and unarmed aerial vehicle imagery. The widespread use and availability of UAVs or drones, as they are commonly referred to, has increased in the past few years, opening the possibility for researchers to gather large volumes of unlabeled aerial images in an affordable and relatively easy way. Although these images do not include the same amount of channels as satellite imagery, they provide geographical information and image data at high resolution that can provide beneficial for segmentation of forest canopy, monitoring of landscape evolution, classification of canopy species, and even detection of some animal species. This is a wide range of computer vision tasks. As this specific reserve once used to be an area greatly affected by cattle farming, land cover segmentation is necessary and crucial to understand how the creation of the reserve has promoted primary and secondary forests to grow back and the area to regenerate. In this study, we explore the possibility of using aerial images captured using a DJI Phantom drone and state-of-the-art machine learning and classical deep learning algorithms to segment land cover into primary forest, secondary forest, tertiary forest, wetlands, and water in El Silencio Natural Reserve located in Antioquia, Colombia. This initial project can be further developed in the following years as a way to equip researchers, conservationists, scientists, and environmental groups with cutting-edge technology that uses UAV land cover segmentation, automatic camera trap species classification, and satellite water use monitoring to contribute to the effort of natural conservation in the world's second most diverse country. The data for this project was very kindly provided by the El Silencio Natural Reserve team. This included 1,888 GPG and CRT UAV images from flights that had been done around the reserve. As well as this, annotations from satellite imagery were given as a way to guide the different types of segmentation that had to be done around the reserve. Some of the data provided had already been processed by biologists in the El Silencio team. They used the drone images to create an orthomosaic, which is a reconstruction of the entire land span of the reserve. However, although the original idea was to work directly with orthomosaics, these are massive, consisting of nearly 1,800,000 pixels per orthomosaic, which causes a computational expense when processing for machine learning or deep learning algorithms. However, there is no denying that orthomosaics provide a much broader and general comprehension of the state of the reserve as they encompass the entire area. Because of this, an initial land cover classification using classical machine learning was implemented. The classical superpixel approach was done to do an initial segmentation. To process the large orthomosaics, an initial tiling was done to work with smaller areas of the reserve and smaller images, which provided a less computationally expensive algorithm. The superpixel approach turned a massive pixel-to-pixel classification into a superpixel classification, which diminished the amount of pixels that had to be classified into the different categories. As we can see from this example, the superpixel approach actually provided very good results. It is clear to see how the superpixels distinguish between textures and change of color, which provided a good cue for land cover classification. Apart from this, superpixels could be changed in size to provide finer grained segmentation for different useful insights. An example of this was to intersect the primary forest segmentation with the finer superpixel segmentation to get a semi-accurate description of the number of trees that were found in the reserve. All of this provided very useful information, but there was one small constraint. As the dataset did not provide any annotations for the images, there was no way to calculate a numerical performance metric. Without this numerical performance metric, there was no way of knowing how the algorithms were actually performing and if the implementations were being useful. This created a drastic change of priorities for the methodology. Before anything else could be done, the creation of a useful dataset had to be made in order to allow deep learning methodologies. This included dataset division, creating dataset annotations, and organizing the entire dataset so that information wouldn't get lost and all of the potentially useful information could be used. This would create a useful tool for future work in the reserve. The data had to be organized in the following way. First, the raw images had to be divided into training and testing folders. As well as this, for the training category, manual annotations had to be made and it had to be organized according to flight, which would give a temporal space of the evolution of the reserve. As well as this, the orthomaps had to be organized into a single category, and the different data, such as the flight logs, image information, the height maps, and the supporting files that were needed for data loading in a further machine learning pipeline, had to be all divided and organized accordingly. The remaining time of the project was consumed by manually annotating all of the training data. Annotations were made manually with Adobe Illustrator software for each of the images that were available in the dataset. The creation of every single one of the masks consisted of first aligning an image to a background and then using a pen tool to segment the interest areas that were found in the image. These areas could be classified into primary forest, secondary forest, tertiary forest, background, water, or agriculture. These masks would provide a pixel-to-pixel annotation that could then be used to create the performance metric necessary to evaluate whether the algorithms were working correctly or not. Needless to say, the creation of each one of these masks was painfully slow and therefore used up a lot of the time available for the project. The result from this project is twofold. Firstly, and less importantly, a small baseline approach for land cover segmentation was established. This used the original orthomosaics and a pre-processing into smaller tiles that are more computationally feasible. However, most importantly, a fully functional and annotated dataset was created from the raw data. To do this, the data had to be filtered, annotated, processed, and organized in order to provide future researchers on this project with the ability to create machine learning and deep learning algorithms that will equip biologists and researchers in El Silencio Natural Reserve with the information necessary to keep a close eye on the reserve and to hopefully promote conservation not only in this area but all around the country. Thank you very much.